Appreciate you getting here on Birds 365 with Mac and Mac, McMullen and McDonald. We are usually graced on Wednesday with the presence of Mike Gill from the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN down the shore. All right, Gill, we can note that it's kind of maroonish. Lean back and show us who you're repping today on the T-shirt.
Atlantic Shore Baseball, baby. Atlantic Shore Baseball. He's turned the corner from the smart colleges. You're going
it's
local.
The season.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's baseball season. You know, for those who don't know, I've been coaching. This is my 18th season.
18? You've been coaching that long?
18, baby.
I was interning for you,
like,
Jody. I was interning for you.
Where you go right from the field to coaching? What the hell they do with you?
Pretty much. Once I left college, I got asked to take over this team, and I just kept doing it.
18. I was talking to DJ Elliott last year. He mentioned he's been coaching for 24 years.
You know, it's one of those things where it's just like a routine almost, where like the times of the season come and you just start getting into it. And, you know, it's fostered a lot of good relationships. And I won a World Series, Jody.
World Series, the Jersey Shore World Series?
No.
How many
World
did you take
Series.
down to win that World
Series? How does that work, Mike? How does that work, the World Series? Are we getting teams from Japan and South Korea?
No, but we did beat a team from Hawaii. We beat a team from Tallahassee, Florida. The team that we beat in the World Series was from Connecticut.
Now, what are we talking about here?
What
age group?
Oh, 13, the age group that nobody cares about because it's the year after they go to the Little League World Series. But this is the first year on the big field at 13 years old.
Nice.
Yeah, we won the states. We won the regional. We went to the World Series, and we won the World Series.
Damn.
Was it Stamford, Connecticut? Because they got a bunch
of...
No,
it was Norwalk, Connecticut.
All right. Nice.
That Connecticut area is very good. They're always really good. But Hawaii, like the Hawaiian teams at that age group, they're always like really good. Tallahassee, Florida, the kid throwing was 13 years old. He was throwing in the 80s. I mean, the Phillies could use him in their bullpen.
Wow. 80s. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Now, what year was this, Mikey Gill?
2 years ago.
Okay. Did you get McMullen to foot the bill for all your travel costs and
well, actually, one of the we have a fundraisers this weekend down the shore at Maynard's. The world famous Maynard's in Margate host our fundraiser, and we use this fundraiser to to make money for the travel and all that stuff, because I've been to the World Series probably I think 4 times. We won it once.
That's pretty damn impressive. I guess I'm going to have to start calling you coach.
Yeah, man. Rob Thompson's got nothing on me, although I know that coaches in this town are always the worst. But
now Rob won 4 in a row now, Mike. He's
back to being a genius. Yeah.
He's back in the good
can peak in valley pretty damn fast.
Yeah.
All right. Before you came on, I was talking to Johnny Mac about the offensive line, and Lane Johnson going to be here another couple of years. He wasn't supposed to be a right tackle. He was supposed to be a left tackle. And he's never moved from right tackle. And the Eagles have that going again this year, trying to replace Isaac Seumalo. Which of the players who played other positions in college are going to jump in and play right guard? And we know it all starts with Jeff Stoutland, and he is the guru, the man, the guy who whips all these guys together and knows how to perfectly align them. I know he gets a lot of credit and a lot of love here in town. Do you think that he is the most powerful position coach in the National Football League?
Well, I would imagine that not many people can name another position coach in the National Football League, let alone, I mean, you might be able to name another, obviously coordinators throughout the league, but how many people know another offensive line coach? Really, like you might say, okay, there's a skill position coach somewhere out there, but I can't. Now, I don't know. I'd have to defer to John on this one, maybe. Is Stoutland that well known only in this region? Like because because of the closeness we have to the Eagles? Or is it a thing around the league that because you always ask the question, this guy's so good, we all talk about it all the time, yet we've never heard him connected or considered for other, bumps up in a higher. He just has always been the offensive line coach. I know that he has some designing, right? He designed some of the run game, stuff like that. But I would have to imagine that his position, he is by far the highest and well regarded at that position. But I wonder if anybody in Minnesota or Chicago or New Orleans or Cincinnati has any clue who he is.
I don't know if, depending on the band, obviously, there's hardcore bands. There's most are more casual. They probably don't know a ton of offensive line coaches. He is regarded as one of the best in the NFL, pretty much around the league. As far as certain guys, Mike Munchak, Dante Scarnecchia, Bill Callahan, guys like that you probably heard of, but long-time offensive line coaches, really well regarded. He's in that
what ends up
category.
happening, though, is those guys, you just mentioned Callahan, when he was with the Raiders, he was an offensive line coach, and then he gets appointed to be the head coach. Once you become the head coach, you become well known. But once he got that job, you're like, they gave the head coaching job to the offensive line coach. Like, what happened
that's
here?
rare. That's
Right.
rare. Andy Reid back in the day was an offensive lineman. So, I mean, I do think
he was the quarterback coach, right?
No, yeah,
in Green Bay, before he came here.
As he progressed, and that's sort of what tends to happen. I was good friends with Mike Tice back in the day, and he eventually went from an offensive line coach to a head coach, and overachieved, at least from the perspective of making the playoffs when he wasn't supposed to. But
who was the guy the other? It was Tony Sperano.
Yeah,
right, for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
He became like the interim for the Dolphins or something, right?
Yeah, he passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, way too soon. But his son is a coach now. With Jeff, I mean, I've talked to him about that. He kind of fell in love with being an offensive line coach. For those who don't know, he was, he was an interim head coach in Miami at college. But he didn't like it. He coached linebackers, I think, at first, when he first started his coaching career. So a lot of these guys kind of morph, and then he just took a liking to sort of the math and the angles, and he always talks about surfacing blocks, and he just fell in love with being an offensive line coach. And he doesn't want to do anything else because he has gotten calls, and he likes it, and he's paid very well. The Eagles, Jeffrey Lurie kind of mentioned when he was talking about when Gannon was leaving to be the head coach, you heard those stories about he was going to give him head coaching money to stay. Eagles fans don't want to hear that, but when Doug Peterson left, for those who don't remember, Bruce Feldman, who's as plugged in as it gets in college football, reported Jeff was going back to Alabama. He had been in Alabama. And Jeffrey said, I'm going to give him more money and keep him. And Jeff's wife was also a big part of that. She didn't want to leave the area, but so she deserves credit. But he's one of the highest paid offensive line coach, probably the highest paid. I can't say that officially because it's not public, but he's certainly among them. And the Eagles, I mean, they know what they have. And
speaking of just to throw OTA season out there, John Gannon is getting some laud out there for the way he is using some of the players that have not been productive. Isaiah Simmons, I've been reading a lot about their OTAs, that they're really excited about the way that Gannon has kind of changed his role in the Cardinals defense. So,
well,
Jody doesn't like that one, huh?
No, and here's why.
Who else is out there?
Tell me a team in the National Football League right now that
they're all
putting
excited,
out vibes that,
I said,
what the hell do we have here?
OTA.
What a mess we are 4 days into practice. Everybody is friggin' great this week. The Arizona Cardinals are going to win 4 games max this year. Count them, bud. No matter how big a genius Madden is, no matter how strategic he is in using players different. 4 max. 4. That's it. If the Cardinals win 4, that'll be the high mark of the season.
And it's almost like the movie Major League. If they win more games, they're going to start taking facility things away from them so that they start losing. It's obvious that they don't want to win. But I've said many times, for the people who don't like Gannon, every player on the Eagles defense last year had their best season ever.
Yeah, most. I would, probably not Slay, but he had a good season. But the only reason he didn't have his best season because he's had so many good seasons.
Right. Brandon Graham, 11 sacks, more than he's ever had. Hassan Reddick, who, by the way, was a sack master wherever he's been, had 18 and a half sacks. He had significantly more sacks here than he ever had. So he had 2 different coordinators, actually 3. He played for 2 coordinators in Arizona, 1 in Carolina. And he had more sacks for this coordinator than he had for any other coordinator. Every guy, Jayvon Hargrave, more sacks than he's ever had. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, more interceptions than he's ever had.
Yeah. CJ, Marcus Epps.
Fletch didn't like him.
Fletch didn't like him early, but he was fine later. People forget, that's kind of amazing you bring that up, Jody, because Fletcher said that very early when the Eagles were struggling. In Nick Sirianni's first year, Fletch had come off playing for Jim Schwartz, who played a completely different defense philosophy up front, and Fletcher liked it because he was playing 3 technique, and it was about pin your ears back and go get the quarterback. So he liked it. And then they come in with the Fangio scheme, and it's more, they call it gap and a half. It's more read and react. It ain't fun, especially for the interior. It's fun for the edge rushers. It's not fun for the interior guys. And Fletch didn't like it. But
he said, I was paid. He said, I'm paid to sack the quarterback. Yeah. Well, he wasn't being used to sack the quarterback. He was being used to hold the line up so that the linebackers can make tackles.
Exactly. But he bought in. And as the success came, he was fine with it. But he'd rather play 3 technique all the time. No question about it. But
Hargrave had his best year, got himself paid. Look at the 2 linebackers. The 2 linebackers got paid. The 2 safeties. Yeah,
I mean, everybody. You go down the list, and Slay had a Pro Bowl season. Bradbury had a career season, 2nd team All-Pro. You mentioned Hargrave. Sweat had his best season. Brandon's played better, but that's because he had more sacks. But he used to play every play, and he was one of the best. So he's a little bit different. Hargrave, I mentioned. Sweat. TJ had his best season. Kaiser White had his best season as a pro. Marcus Epps had his best season. CJ Gardner-Johnson. Yeah. I'm sorry. Knuckleheads, Mike. You and I discuss it all the time. I mean, everybody's having their best season, and you're complaining about the defense. I don't know what to tell you. Your expectations are too high. Nothing's perfect. If you're looking for perfection, you great, chase it, but you ain't getting it.
So what do you guys think and I know Sean Desai just did the Eagles podcast, the X and O podcast, and a little bit more of his personality came out. We know that the overall arc of the defense and the philosophy behind it and quote unquote the Fangio-ness of it is going to be in place. Where do you think you'll see differences? Can't be exactly the same. It's not going to be a carbon copy of the Johnson and Gannon defense. So if there are certain differences, what do you think will be the easiest to spot and be the most prevalent?
That's a good question, because what did the new linebacker Nicholas Morrow was talking, I guess, yesterday or the day before, about how he's never seen more situational like awareness in practices. Like, I guess they're practicing more situational stuff. So you may see them, on third down, people with Jim Schwartz, you could see the difference in Jim Schwartz's defense on third down. They played that sticks defense. The guys were so far off the ball. So you may see better combinations. But I don't know that you're going to have a whole heck of a lot of, like, for instance, when Brett Brown was the coach of the Sixers and then Doc Rivers took over, they didn't aesthetically look all that much. People still complained about Joel Embiid being too far from the basket. They didn't aesthetically look different. I think Nick Nurse, they might aesthetically, you might watch the Sixers play and be like, this looks like a different coach team. I don't know that that's going to be the case with here. We were talking a lot about this on my show yesterday. Is last year at Fletcher, Linval, and Hargrave in that 5-man look. So this year, essentially, are those snaps going to be Fletcher, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter? And if that's the case, you're not aesthetically going to look a lot different. You're just going to have different pieces playing those roles. So that might be, Jody, the answer is how different do those players look as opposed to how different the scheme looks.
Yeah, and that you mentioned Morrow. He was talking about situational football. He said he's learned more about situational football in 6 weeks in Philadelphia than he has in 6 years. But that's a Sirianni thing. Like, that was already going on. That's like a Nick Sirianni obsession. So I don't think that part of it's going to change that much.
Right.
I think, if you look at Sean Desai in Chicago, and that's all we have to go on, he kind of overloads a little bit more than Gannon. So you might see 3rd and 13. You might see Reddick and Sweat on the same side, try to take advantage of a matchup. But ultimately, yeah. I mean, but here's how I describe it. There were a lot of people who thought the Eagles changed defenses from year 1 to year 2 in Nick Sirianni. They didn't change defenses. They just played the 50 front more because, remember, they didn't have Jordan Davis, and then they brought in Linval Joseph. They didn't have Hassan Reddick. They had Jannard Avery. So they played more of the 40 fronts.
That's a big difference, by the way.
That's a huge difference. So they played more of the 40 fronts and the Fangio philosophy than they did the second year because they had better players to run what they wanted to run.
Well, and that too, John. I mean, the one corner you had, who was the guy from Kansas City? Nolan Carroll. Who played the opposite corner the first year?
Steven Nelson.
Steven Nelson.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Steven Nelson, they had to play him so far off the ball because they knew everybody was going to run past him. Bradbury, much better. So you had much better play on the outside corners. Your linebackers last year, I mean, we talked about they had Alex Singleton, who gives a hell of a lot of effort, makes a lot of tackles, but is a guy that other teams look for on the field and say, where's number 47 at? Let's go after him. The linebacking play, I think, was one of the things last year that was overlooked about how much better they were at that particular position. And then you had Chauncey Gardner-Johnson making plays. The year before, your safeties just were not playmakers. I mean, you just didn't do anything.
But Mike, you bring up a good point. So, you get those clips, and I already got it today. And you know this. When the team does well, it's the players. When the team does poorly, it's the coaches. They succeeded despite Jonathan Gannon. You hear that all the time because the players were so good. Well, those players that were so good, especially on the back seven, TJ Edwards is in Chicago. Kaiser White's back with Gannon in Arizona. Marcus Epps is in Las Vegas. CJ's in Detroit. Sean Desai's up against it. If it's the players, those players aren't there. So the assumption that, hey, maybe Nakobe Dean's better. He's got the potential. I'm pretty sure Nick Morrow's not going to be better. I'm pretty sure Reed Blankenship isn't going to be better than CJ. Can Terrell Edmonds be better than Marcus Epps? Maybe in a different way, not in a way the Eagles want to play. Can't have it both ways.
Yeah,
If
you're
it's the players,
essentially getting 6 new faces and a new coordinator on the defensive side of the ball that will be getting a lot of snaps.
yeah.
All right, but taking John's point and taking it a step further, of the Eagles' defensive starting defectors that went elsewhere via free agency, certainly Jayvon Hargrave had the biggest statistical season. I'd say even bigger than Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who had interceptions and probably was going to run away with the title if he hadn't got hurt late in the season. But Jayvon Hargrave was just phenomenal last year. But they went out and used their 9th pick in the draft to basically replace Jayvon Hargrave. And there's a lot of pressure on Carter to come in and be good right away. What's the position that the Eagles are going to most have to explain 2 weeks in, 4 weeks in, 6 weeks in? Yeah, we're trying to get better at that. We can be better at that. We're make adjustments to be better at that. What on the defense in a replacement position do you think they're going to have the biggest problem with?
That's a great question because you have 2 new safeties, 2 new linebackers, and 2 new linemen. So you have 2 new of everything from front to back. And I don't know. I think the safety spot, last year Marcus Epps came in and at first, before they made the trade, and now they made the trade for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who wasn't really a full-time safety. They kind of just assumed he can go play safety. He had played a lot of corner. But Marcus Epps coming in, we're like, can he really be the guy? And they went out and got Chauncey Gardner. Right now, I don't know that anybody can guess who the 2. I mean, you might be able to guess, hey, yeah, it's going to be Terrell Edmonds and Reed Blankenship, or Edmonds, So to me, the answer is safety, because the linebackers, I think you say Nakobe Dean is going to be at least one of the guys. Morrow the other. Maybe they'll look for an upgrade tomorrow. The 2 defensive linemen, both highly, highly drafted, so you would have less questions about them. The 2 safeties, whoever they may be, I think is definitively, I don't know what you're going to get from those 2. And what is the high ceiling? What's the high mark for those guys? I think the high mark for Nakobe Dean is he could be a really good player. The high mark for Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, they both could be really good players. The high mark for the safety spot, not sure what the high water mark is there. So I go safety.
Now, what's the low water mark, Mike? That's the key, because everything in the NFL always, maybe a couple things go right, but if I give you 5 things, I guarantee you 5 things aren't going to go right. Things can go in a negative direction as well. So what is the floor of that particular defense and particularly the back 7?
That's another good question. I know this. We saw what the floor was for the linebacking play over the last couple of years and how different the linebacking play was. And what did that mean for the defense? I don't know, because linebackers in this league get so overshadowed. There's just something that, unless you have really good ones. Tampa Bay had great linebackers, and it was like, are linebackers making a comeback? No, not really, just in Tampa Bay, because they had good ones. I think the Eagles linebackers were – when you had Nate Geary playing linebacker for this
Poor
team.
Nate.
It was atrocious. That's why I said 47. Where's 47? Yeah. There he is. Go right after him. Blankenship is one of those guys that if he's on the field, I don't know, the floor or teams saying, hey, we've got to get somebody lined up in the slot and try to run in the seam and run past that guy. Do you find way – if he's on the field a lot and you're an offensive coordinator, I would imagine during the week you're saying, okay, how do we attack that position on the field? The safety spot down the middle. How do we take shots down the field with that grouping? Terrell Edmonds, he's just kind of a vagabond veteran player at this point. People look at what the floor is. Okay. The Eagles have had these guys, right? They've had these veteran players who came from other places, and they just, they're solid, not spectacular type of guys. They make mistakes. They get beat. You run 50 plays a game, 47 of them, they usually do their job. But the other 3, it's you take your chances a lot. So I don't know. The big thing for me is I don't think you have a playmaking guy. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, you had a guy who can make plays, make stuff happen. Do you have that guy right now? So the ceiling would be safe, not spectacular.
Well, but here's where I'll disagree with you. you're leaving one of the safeties out, and he's a guy who just got here in the draft this year in Sidney Brown. I've got more faith in Sidney Brown. If you put the guys right now who you think are going to be the starters, and we can all debate that until Sirianni or Sean Desai said so, since we're on the defensive side of the ball, it doesn't matter. I got more faith in him stepping in, maybe even overachieving, being a breakout guy as a rookie than I do Christian Ellis replacing Nick Morrow, or Sean Bradley replacing Nick Morrow, or Davion Taylor replacing Nick Morrow. Even though they've all been here before, their upside to me doesn't cut it. Sidney Brown's upside, and it might be because we just don't even know what it is yet, could be higher than anything else the Eagles could run at linebacker. So for me, the position that I will be scrutinizing more than any other, sorry about this big guy, it's Nick Morrow. I'm worried. That's why I continue to beat the Patrick Queen drum. Ante up, Howie. Go get yourself a real linebacker from Baltimore.
Well, no, and you're right about Sidney Brown. I mean, he could end up being the playmaking guy. He could end up being that guy who, exceeds what we had thought, because we have this thought in our minds when you're not that high draft choice that, okay, you're only a third round pick. How good can you really be? It's almost like a wait and see thing. But, from all accounts, very athletic guy, possibly a guy who could be that playmaker. But you're certainly right about the four options at safety are certainly better than the means of the four options. I like Nakobe Dean a lot. I think now if he can hold up, he's small, we get that. But I think he is going to be an excellent playmaking addition to the defense. The rest of the group, totally agree with you, Jody. The floor a little low.
At Mike Gill's show, Mike Gill, listen to him if you're down the shore locally in the Delaware Valley, the Sports Bash every day. Number one again, Mike Gill. I saw you're number one again. I used to take my victory laps when I was part of the show every day. Now I can't do that, but congratulations on being number one again. Drive time in South Jersey. It's funny. Jody and I do this every day, talking about the Eagles. You do it every day. But Jody and I, we don't talk about Jalen Hurts anymore. It's amazing.
Who are you referring to, John?
It's
no, come on. We did yesterday.
Yeah,
Chris handed him to us on a platter.
Yeah,
we actually did Jalen Hurts. We probably hadn't done him in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
but we did yesterday, courtesy of Chris Sims.
But the point I'm trying to make is we don't talk about Jalen Hurts like we're talking about the defensive backfield, the safeties. But last year at this time, that's exactly what we were doing. We were spending all our time talking about what's his ceiling, what's his floor. Now he's just constant to the point where number 7 in the NFL, which is pretty damn good, by the way, Chris Sims, you're pretty good. That's disrespect. Yeah, that's disrespect. That's how things have shifted so dramatically for Jalen Hurts in a calendar year. Now, if you look at his career, even when he got benched at Alabama, but you look at it from year to year to year to year, and Nick Sirianni's talked about this. Very rarely do you have a player who gets better and better and better and better and better and better with no hiccups. To date, that's been Jalen Hurts. Can he possibly get better than he was last year? Because that was pretty impressive.
Second best player.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely can get better, and I think he will be better. Honestly, I do. You said we didn't talk about last year because it was an unknown. We saw him his rookie year very infrequently. His second year, he took over, and he was good, not great. And the conversation was, do they need to upgrade that position by the veterans that were available on the trade market? Or they had a draft choice. So it was, do you draft a guy? Do you trade for a veteran? Or did you see enough from him the year before to give him another shot? I was on camp. I saw enough that I want to see more. Now, nobody thought you would go from the 2021 version to the 2022 version, but I think what we learned about the 2022 version is that there's still more to go. because if I know anything about Jalen Hurts that I've heard over the years was tremendous leader, work ethic. I never heard about great arm strength, accuracy. I always heard about the other things. So if the other things never go away, you would imagine he's going to keep getting better and better and better, because that's where he got to this point was. It wasn't about your arm strength and your accuracy and your decision-making and all those things. It was about the intangibles. Well, the intangibles are still there. So that tells me this guy is going to continue to work hard, continue to get better. And oh, by the way, the talent around him will keep evolving to make him better. He's still got A.J. Brown to keep that continuity with, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. It's not like this guy had this huge year and then all his pieces left him. He's going into year 2 with the same group of guys. So I only see him and this offense continue. Now, the coordinator is different. And we heard so much last year. It's the first time he has the same coordinator 2 years in a row. I would imagine that there is a lot of synergy, though, between what they did. The coach was here. It's not like they had to go from another organization and bring him in. So, yeah, I definitely see another step in the right direction for Jalen Hurts, which is pretty impressive to think about, right?
All right, let's finish on a Jalen Hurts note since we went there. Should Eagle fans be proud or petrified that, I think it's later on today, they're going to name the cover boy of the John Madden fantasy football
video game?
The Madden curse has kind of gone by the board the last couple of years. Mahomes has been on it twice over the last 4 years and hasn't really affected him much, including being on the cover and winning the Super Bowl last year. But forever, that was like guys would run completely and totally scared of being on, although it's an honor and you get a check and everything else. They didn't want to be on Madden because whoever went on Madden seemed to drop back in production the year after. I think it's a great honor to be on the cover of it. I would want my guy on it if I were an Eagle fan. How does Mike Gill look at it?
First off, I haven't played John Madden football or any PlayStation or Xbox game probably in 20 years. The game got way too difficult. Mike. Like, got too difficult. Like, it used to be.
Give me up, down, ABC, up, down, back.
It used to be X to throw. And the 1 year, for the people who game over there in the chat comment section, there was one version of Madden where you had to turn the quarterback's head. Like, you had to use the buttons to turn his head. At that point, I said, that's too much. I am out. But to have your guy on the cover, I was surprised that they don't do like Sports Illustrated, where there's like regional guys on the front. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if you're in the Buffalo region, you get Josh Allen.
Another jinx, the SI covered jinx. By the way, for people, jinxes aren't real. Curses aren't real.
What's the new curse? It's Taylor Swift. Isn't she the new curse? Taylor Swift. Yeah.
But to everybody else, well, I'm hiding from John McMullen because he's a Sports Illustrated guy.
Right.
Martha Stewart on the bathing suit. What the hell is that all about? Come on.
Believe it or not, those decisions are made at the corporate level. I have nothing to do
with it. Come on, McMullen. You could twist some arms. You can get that corrected. You got to know that before they ever put that out and say, what the hell are we thinking?
My one concern.
Maybe they're trying to curse her.
My Jalen Hurts concern on over top of the Madden cover is, did you see his swing yesterday? Awful. I mean, this is anytime another professional athlete tries to either throw a baseball or hit a baseball, you see how hard it is to play baseball.
But A.J. Brown looked pretty good.
Well, A.J. Brown was drafted and played.
A.J. Brown is a great baseball player.
You can see that he knows what he's doing. But any other athlete who has no idea how to play baseball, you find out how good these baseball players are.
Yeah.
You got Jalen Hurts, who was number 2 in the MVP in the most popular, biggest sport in the America, and the swing was horrible swing, Jalen Hurts.
The thing that surprised me was, what the hell's he swinging left-handed? He's a right-handed thrower. You're supposed to be swinging from the right-handed side. You get throwing the ball with the right hand.
Chase Utley, man. Chase Utley throws right, bats left.
Yeah, man. HA is a tremendous baseball player, and he will not hesitate to tell you that.
No, he looked like he could swing. Hurts having a catch with Rob Thompson. He looked like sometimes you get the football players who throw out the first pitch and they look like they have no idea how to throw. At least Hurts looked like he could throw a little bit, but swinging the bat, he was choking up a little bit. I mean, he looked like Casey Stengel up there.
Well, as I always say, for those in Allentown this weekend, Devontae Smith charity softball game is up there. Jake Elliott is the best at everything. Anything that involves hand-eye coordination, swinging a bat, tremendous softball player, baseball player, tremendous golfer, best ping pong player on the team.
I had a guy that was my roommate in college who was the Jake Elliott. Just the most unassuming guy. He could throw a dart in the middle every time, every single time, free throw shots every single time. So he gets called at a New Jersey Nets game. This is back when they were in Jersey. To shoot the half court shot for like $50,000.
He's a ringer.
And he makes it. Yeah, he's one of these guys that owns like a boardwalk game and can hit the baskets he knows exactly where some of those guys are just like that. They're the best at the weirdest things. But he made the shot from half court and won like $50,000.
So I'm guessing Mike Gill paid the price in quarters at some point hanging out with this guy.
Oh, yeah. He could bang him into that shot glass. Yeah. Bang! From any angle on the table.
Yeah.
Mikey Gill, great stuff. Always a pleasure, bud. You got a game this week? You going to be out there in the dugout, Coach?
Yeah, man. Friday night playoffs. We just began. The state tournament starts July the 6th. So we're practicing up to that point. We're in our regular season right now.
Now, is there a lot of pressure on you now because of the prior successes?
Well,
I will have a down season.
The lot of program, like last year, we hosted the regional in Ventnor, and teams from like the region that came to play here, they wanted to take their picture with us.
Yeah. Ooh. Now you get these parents that are kind of crazy, and
Well, I tell you, because this is Babe Ruth, it's still like quote unquote a rec league. A lot of the travel players, they will pause their travel season to play on this team because we have had such notoriety over the years that they will, everybody wants to play on this team.
Right, now I'm worried about your ego. Now you got to check your ego. You got to keep grinding. You got to keep grinding.
We certainly get a lot of people who have interest at this age group, and
now is it just 13 years old? 13.
We have the league is 13, 14, 15, but the all-star teams are individual 13, 14, 15. The regular season, the whole batch plays together.
Okay, yeah, because I'm surprised that they're still. When I played baseball 100 years ago, there was a specific year, 13, and they called it Graduate League, and then Babe Ruth was 14, 15. And you're telling me they put 13, 14, 15 all together.
Because of the numbers issues. I mean, there's just not enough kids anymore. There used to be a 13 prep league, it was called, and then the 14s and 15s played in their own. But now they just kind of mix them all together.
All right, Coach Gill, outstanding job out of you. Thank you very much for jumping in. We'll talk to you again next Wednesday. See how you did coaching this weekend.
All right, boys, take care.
Thanks, Mike.
Gill. The Sports Bash, #1 down the shore. Like John said, kudos to him. If he's still killing it on the radio side, he does so as well when he joins us here on Birds 365. All right, Jody Mac. I got Gill's take. I got to get McMullen's take. He sounds to me like he's worried and he's nervous. The Madden curse could be in play. Jalen Hurts could be on the cover.
I can't get any sleep because of that, Jody.
You want to come back and see Sleepless in what town do you live over in Jersey there, buddy?
Yeah, I don't want to mention that anymore. Yeah, so many knuckleheads out there. I got a lot of threats over the Russell Wilson stuff. There's a lot of weirdos.
Sleepless in South Jersey with John McMullen coming back next here on Birds 365.